For years, I built websites where everything scales down at the same rate. As a perfectionist designer, I loved this because it kept content from wrapping in places I didn't want it to and filled up the space on larger screen sizes. But little did I know this was actually destroying the experience for users who now can't zoom in and out at all. It made the responsiveness of the site much worse and kept me from learning important responsive techniques. Years of responsiveness best practices have taught us that on desktop, we can have a more extreme difference between our largest and smallest font size, and on mobile, the larger sizes need to shrink down at a greater rate, whereas the smaller font sizes need to shrink down at a lesser rate or sometimes even not at all. In fact, sometimes the smallest sizes will even increase in size a little bit, so we'll have less difference between our largest and smallest font size on mobile, and then more difference between them when we have greater space. When everything scales at the same rate, the smaller elements get comically large on larger screen sizes and way too small on the smaller screen sizes. There's two ways to fix this, and both have their issues. The first is to set the smaller element to a fixed size on the smaller screen size, so at a certain point it just stops scaling down. But then we lose all control of our hierarchy between sizes, and at certain points the fluid sizes might even become smaller than our fixed sizes. The second option is to just increase the font size of everything on the smaller screen size. This allows us to preserve our desktop hierarchy for longer, but often the larger sizes become too large, and like we already established, a good responsive system needs a different hierarchy for mobile. So we usually end up having to manually adjust each of the elements anyway. Now, this doesn't mean that fluid sizes are bad. In fact, when set up correctly, fluid sizes can allow us to have a better looking website across every screen size instead of manually applying a font size on a couple key breakpoints. It also allows the user to zoom in and out freely, but to do this, we need to use Clamp. And with Clamp, we can set a maximum and min font size for each heading level, and then let it scale fluidly in between those two sizes. But the key here is we need to combine rim and viewport width. If we were just to make it scale with the screen size, we'd run into the same issue where between this max and min size, the user couldn't zoom at all. So having rim in here is important. Now the difference here is instead of making everything scale at the same rate, each heading font size is scaling at its own rate. In fact, I'll open up the Fluid Builder Webflow app, and we'll see we can dial in exactly what we want this heading's font size to be here on desktop and what we want that heading's font size to be on mobile. And we can control how much difference we want between each of our different heading levels here. And for this paragraph, we're actually increasing the font size here on mobile, but we're still able to ensure that it's never larger than the actual H3 font size. So this one is shrinking down, this one is shrinking up, but they never actually meet or cross in between each other. So this gives us the most control. And once we start to apply fluid spacing in this as well, we can ensure our spacings are related to our font sizes and everything just scales at a ratio that we control. Now, what we don't want to do is just let the font size scale up and down indefinitely with no max and min screen size. While the user can technically zoom this, they won't be able to double their font size when reaching max browser zoom in a lot of cases. So for a font size to be truly accessible, it does need a max and min value. Often the reason why people want font sizes that scale up indefinitely is because they want a site that has no max width. But just because the site has no max width doesn't mean the font sizes can't have a max size. This site by Jordan Gilroy is a great example of a site done well, so the user can still zoom. He's using Clamp for all the font sizes, and we'll notice this heading font size is scaling here, but it reaches its max size somewhere about here, and then he's put a max width on the actual heading element so that we don't have too many words on one line, but the heading can still go all the way to the edge of the screen. So if we scroll down further here, we'll notice in this example as well, the font sizes have a max size, and then each text element is just wrapped in its own max width, so we don't have too many words on one line. And this also keeps the font sizes from feeling too overwhelming and too large on larger screens. Often when I had font sizes that scaled indefinitely, the feedback from clients with larger monitors was that everything just felt way too large. So having the max font sizes definitely helps things feel better, but we can still do that with sites that span the full width of the screen like this one. So hopefully by now it's clear that removing viewport width font sizes is not a design compromise. If anything, it makes the design better while also improving the experience for your users.